My guest today is Dr. Chris Molda, a licensed chiropractor who ran a functional wellness practice for more than 20 years. In 2021, he got severely sick from black mold, COVID, parasites, Lyme, and a variety of bacterial infections. He had to not only find a way to heal himself, but also his wife, mother-in-law, and some of his patients struggling with complex chronic infections. After 4 years of suffering with these challenges to his health, he was finally able to fully heal and is now sharing these protocols with his patients. Can't wait to share this interview with you. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Next Level Healing. I'm your host, Dr. Tara Perry. My guest today is somebody I stumbled across recently. He is Dr. Chris Molda. He's located up in Maine. About 20 years ago, he got into chiropractic and became a licensed chiropractor. And then he got interested in functional medicine, as many of us did. We wanted to find a better way to support the body naturally so that it would become more immune to illness and disease. And he recently has come across something else, which I found fascinating and would love to share it with you. Welcome, Dr. Chris.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
So take us back a little bit. You got your chiropractic license. You got into functional medicine because, like many of us, we wanted to support the body in a more authentic, natural, and functional way.
A more complete way, we'll say.
Yeah, rather than give a drug or surgery that had one effect, but then often, 10 or 20 effects that you didn't like. We all wanted to reach out for something that was really going to boost the vibrancy and overall health of the body and mind and spirit. Just tell us how you stumbled across functional medicine and then what you're currently doing.
Sure. So I got into chiropractic specifically because the medical model never interested me or my family. I've never, medication wasn't a staple in my house. My parents still don't take medication. They're in their late 70s. And so that was never something that interested me. I had a lot of back pain. I was an athlete, got into chiropractic that way. Didn't really understand, to me, it was like physical therapy. Didn't really understand what being a doctor meant. And a chiropractor, at that point, I didn't realize a chiropractor was a doctor. We just don't use drugs or surgery. We use adjustments and we help the body heal itself as it wants to heal itself. You just need to remove the interference. And so as I was practicing and learning how to use chiropractic, it is such a great tool and I loved it. But it wasn't helping all the things, right? So it's like if you believe the body should heal itself and be healthy, but you're not getting all the results you want, your curiosity tends to just kick in and say, hey, there's more here than I know, right? And so that's kind of how I started to branch off. At the time, I had a great chiropractic practice. I was, a big chunk of it was concussions, I saw somebody with like 21 concussions once. He was 20, he was like 22 years old. He had to drop out of college and stuff. It was crazy. Moved into neurofeedback and biofeedback. And then started to learn more about detox and functional health and functional medicine. And that's when I kind of had to make a decision. You can't like dabble in all of those things and have and have like an actual good practice. So I had a wife who had a lot of hormone issues. I had a mother-in-law who had chronic Lyme for 15 years. I had my own health challenges, and it just made sense for me to start to understand the functional side. You really dove into the microbiome, epigenetics, that kind of thing. And that's where my practice has been ever since. That was probably 10 to 12 years ago now at this point. And just constantly looking for more and not being satisfied with this is okay. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And the problem is it takes time even for a doctor because you got to learn. And like when I had like biochemistry, not my thing. Nutrition, not my thing. Didn't want to learn it, got into chiropractic. Like, I'm never going to have to learn this stuff. Turns out that if you actually want to help people, you eventually have to learn, about the Krebs cycle, actually mitochondria, and I didn't even know the difference between a carb, protein, and fat when I first started this, and had to understand all of those things. And so it took some time to just get that basic understanding, but then it took a lot of time trying everything out and being like, okay, well, this is what everybody says, get this test and learn this thing and do this as a result of these answers, and you start doing it, or I started to do it, and there were just so many gaps, so many gaps. Um, practice on my wife, on my mother-in-law. They never reacted great to anything. I mean, I could take it to my office and people would react positively, bring it to them, and they're like, nope, I feel worse. Okay, I guess I got to find another thing. And so they just forced me to keep learning and exploring and doing things. And then in around 2019 is when I started to really do a deep dive into parasites. And I was so hesitant to do this because I was like, ooh, this just felt like something to me that was going to be tough for me personally to heal from. And so I started to do it gingerly, but right around 2020, the office I was in had black mold and the landlord wouldn't do anything about it. So I stopped paying him. He still wouldn't do anything about it. I got really sick with COVID where I was sick for I couldn't get out of bed for 2 weeks, couldn't eat or drink anything for 2 weeks. Um, and I was doing this parasite stuff. And so it turns out that I had this perfect storm of parasites, COVID, mold, and Lyme at the time. And I had to gradually rebuild my own health, um, using all of the tools that I already learned, which were very ineffective for when you're that sick. The standard, even functional stuff is very ineffective. And I did it all. I mean, I'm not going to tell you all the things but anything that you can think of or you've heard, I've done it. Um, and it really wasn't moving the dial, and it took me probably another 3 years to just wait and find and just stumble on different things, and, eventually, I came across the protocol that I'm doing now, which is ultimately a very simple protocol because I always thought, man, functional stuff is uber complicated. It feels like medicine where everything is complicated. And I don't think that truth is complicated. I think truth is simple at the end of the day, right?
Hey guys, studies are showing that 68% of people that watch podcasts regularly don't click the subscribe button. Do me a huge favor. If you like this content, click subscribe so other people know where to go for the cool stuff. Thank you.
So I'm looking for something that makes sense in a simple way, and it doesn't require take these top supplements for 3 days and then pause them, and then take these 5 supplements for 7 days, and then pause that, and then do this treatment once a week while you're doing this, and eat this very specific diet. Don't eat this for 2 weeks, but then you can bring it back in, but you can never bring this. Like all of that stuff just is like nobody can live like that. And I was doing all those protocols and I was helping chronic Lyme people get better. Not everybody, but I was helping like 80% of people get better. And I was still curious about that 20% because my mother-in-law and my wife fell in that 20%. So I could never just sit there and be happy with the 80%. Um, and then I got sick. And so I had to get myself better and I had to find new, innovative, interesting things, and just be patient and wait. And my practice suffered, my health suffered, my family suffered while I was waiting. Um, but um, I can say that I'm healing in a way I've never healed before. And um, healing to me is when you don't need to be on those complicated protocols just to have a good day, right? So, like in the past, I could get people I could use therapies like laser and HBOT and PMF, and I could do diets and intermittent fasting and 5-day water fast and 10-day water fast and all of these things. And people who lost their life to Lyme would get their life back, but they couldn't just relax. The second we tried to kill something, the second they were like, "Oh, I'm going on vacation. I'm going to eat what I want, drink what I want," they would crash hard. And that's not healing. But I would say for me, what I'm doing now is actually healing. It's actually getting to that legitimate root cause where it's not just a slogan of, "Hey, I'm trying to get to the root cause." It like legitimately getting to that root cause, and seeing lasting changes, and not just myself and my family and my mother-in-law and my wife finally, but also the patients that are coming to me with really complicated diagnoses and stuff. And so it's finally, after 22 years of being in practice, I finally feel like I'm at the place I want to be, which is a nice thing to say.
And for those listeners who aren't familiar, hyperbaric oxygen therapy is HBOT, and then you mentioned PMF,
Yeah, pulsed electro
magnetic frequency.
magnetic fields. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, what a great story. And what was your first introduction and tip off that there was something, a stone that you hadn't unturned yet that was pivotal for you and your family?
So there was a product that came out in like 2021 that was just new that I'd never heard of. And it was bacteriophages. And I was like, oh, what's this? And I started one of the supplement companies just had all of these kind of phage products that they were marketing. And I was like, well, what's this? And I started to look into what phages were because I'd never really heard of it. I didn't really know what it was. And I really like learning new things and saying, oh, what is this actually new product about? And so that's when I started to learn what phages were. And I started to use these products, and there was an E. coli phage. So um, for just to kind of explain real quick, because there's a longer explanation, but the short explanation is a phage is essentially a virus. It acts like a virus, but it's a good virus, not a bad virus. So you don't have to think of like COVID or flu or Ebola or anything like that. It's one of the good viruses. And essentially, what a phage does is a phage attacks um, a bacteria, but it only attacks that one bacteria, and the term is called monovalent, meaning it will only attack one thing. So if you have an E. coli phage, it will attack E. coli, and if you have strep next to it, it will never attack the strep. It will only attack the E. coli, and it works just like a virus, meaning it injects itself into the host, starts to eat it from the inside out, multiplies, kills the host, and now all of these new phages go look for more food. And what I learned at this time was that these phages, because they eat it from the inside out, you don't get this explosion, you get an implosion. And so when you use phages to actually kill things, it's more clean. You don't get this cytokine storm. You don't get this detox reaction or Herx reaction. It's a much more silent killer.
So, just for our listeners that aren't familiar, a cytokine storm is
And it's a reaction, just a hyperimmune reaction. I mean, traditionally, when people talk about a cytokine storm, they're talking about sepsis. It's just this infection and this vicious cycle of creating more inflammation because there's more bacteria, more inflammation, and then eventually just spirals out of control. And that's kind of where sepsis ends up.
and
Um,
our response is when you put something in the body that kills a bunch of things that are bad things, but then your body has to clean it out, and then it has a negative experience as a result of just having the cleanup up to do.
Yeah, because you've kind of taken this one bad thing and broken it up into 100 small bad things now. And it's more inert, but it's still irritating to your body. And so your body creates inflammation to wash it out. It's kind of like if you sprain your ankle swells to bring all the good guys there, but it hurts, right? And it hurts for a few days. That's kind of what a cytokine storm is like in the body. It just creates this huge inflammatory response and it hurts and you don't like it. So when you use phages, you can avoid those kind of experiences. Um, and I thought that was really cool because I hated using killers. I mean, I'm a chiropractor, so using antibiotics and, antiparasitic drugs was never any part of my arsenal because I didn't want it to be because philosophically I was like, I feel like there's another way. Um, and so I would use herbals and natural killers. But when you do all of those things, you kill good guys and bad guys and you start spinning your wheels because the reason we heal is because of the amount of good guys we have. So I always shied away, or I started to shy away at this point from doing any kind of killers, which is hard to do parasites without killing, by the way, without using herbals. And so I was stuck in this kind of, well, what do I do now? Um, and so these phages allowed me the opportunity to do targeted killing without killing any good guys, and with it being less messy. And that's kind of what started my journey just with understanding what phages were. And then fast forward 4 years later, I came across a company. I'd come across a company at the time that was talking about using phages for Lyme, and I was like, I'm all on board. Just message me whenever this is ready, I'm ready. And so fast forward 4 years later, I finally got an email from them saying they have their product available for doctors to use. And I've been using their formulas ever since. And the difference between their formulas and what I was using before was that the products I was using before were targeting a single infection. And it's a very specific infection. Like I say E. coli, but it's not like there's E. coli like Smithy and E. coli brevi. And it's that specific when you target. And so you're targeting these very, very specific types of infections. And there's no like, there's no splash over where you're not accidentally going to kill other things that you're not targeting. So this company had the ability to target multiple types of infections at the same time. And so I started using that with my complicated patients. We started to incorporate the detox that I had learned like a decade ago, I would say was kind of you started to learn what most people do, the shortcomings and the inefficiencies of it. So I started to change the way I was detoxing people and doing it more effectively. And I would say this, the punchline is this, the way I know that I figured it out was because my mother-in-law was super sensitive. Like she's one of those people where if you give her a B vitamin, she can only take a quarter of it because if she takes the whole one, she reacts to it. Like any supplement, she instantly reacts to. And she was my guinea pig. Besides me, like I do everything on me first before I do it on anybody else. But I was like, hey, this gave me my life back. I think you should do this. Okay, Chris. A month goes by, she hasn't done it yet because it's family, right? And so eventually she's in a flare up, and I'm like, hey, let's just try these things and see what happens. And she was nervous and essentially she did it wrong. I'm saying she did it wrong because she reacted to what we were doing. And so she finally agreed to do it the way I told her to do it, and she didn't react to it. Um, and she's been great ever since. And she's doing great. I have all these patients now that are doing great. The most sensitive people, everybody comes to me, I'm super sensitive. I can't do this. I have to eliminate this out of my diet. We start doing this protocol, they don't react to it, and they're able to start to tolerate other things. And so it's wonderful to see, and it's very uplifting to see other people have the same experience that I did getting my life back. And I get to see other people do that too.
And you segued very quickly from having a brick and mortar chiropractic practice to doing this full time. What kind of time period was that for you?
6 months.
Wow.
Yeah. So in about the span of 6 months, treating complicated Lyme, complicated any kind of complicated condition. I had somebody with MS, I had somebody with West Nile virus. All of these really complicated cases just became the majority, like 75% of my practice. So it didn't make sense for me to pay rent on something I didn't need because all of these clients were virtual. So it didn't make sense for me to keep paying rent when the majority of my work was not brick and mortar. So I
And
ended up just going virtual.
did you find this line of products at a conference? Did a patient tell you about it? I'm just curious. How did you stumble across it?
Yeah, so like I said, the company just reached out to me when they were ready. I just said I'm interested, and they put me on their email list and held on to my email for literally 4 years. And then I just got an email randomly, and the company is called Phasian Corp. It's Phagen. And I got an email, and I was like, huh. And I just saw it in my emails, and it's like I saw it, and I was like, well, that's in my spam, but it says Phasian, and those are like phages. I wonder what that's about. Because I still was researching phages and stuff and interested in it and loved them. Um, and that's how I found them. And they emailed me, and I called them right up, and I said, I'm ready, let's do this. And they were ready to start to get other doctors on board and stuff too. So
Fabulous.
yeah.
And tell us about the safety profile, because we all know first do no harm. What's the safety profile for this line of product?
For the line of product, it's extremely safe, and just in general, this is what I would say. Action do so this is kind of what what the product looks like. I just actually happen to have one here.
Mhm.
Okay. And so essentially what it is it's a vial of water. Just so people can see as we're talking about it. This is what it is. It's just a vial of water.
Mhm.
And you essentially just drink that every 12 hours. And what's happening is there is I'm not going to get technical because I don't like to get technical. So I'm just going to make it simple. There's a
Yep.
signal in there. There's a signal embedded. There's some minerals in the water, and the signal's embedded in the minerals. And those signals interact with the targeted phages that are already inside of you. So the thing you have to understand is that we're not giving people phages. We're not giving people viruses when we do this, because I think technically you can't do that. I think it's actually legal to do that outside of a specific research environment because you're giving somebody a virus. And so what we know is that phages live with their host. And this is the longer answer, but it's completely safe. And the reason it's completely safe is because it's interacting with the phages, not with you. So it's not interacting with you. So you can't react to it. Like there's nothing for you to react to. And that's essentially why it's safe. But getting back to the phages, we know that everything has viruses surrounding it. So you and I are made of 30 trillion cells, essentially. We're made of 40 trillion bacteria, essentially. And we're made of 375 trillion viruses, essentially. So we're way more virus than anything else. And if you eliminate the 20 or so pathogenic viruses that people get nervous about, like I said, COVID, flu, Ebola, all of these like different viruses, if you get rid of those pathogenic viruses, the clear majority of them are either friendly or we don't know what they do. And so these phages are already inside of you, just living in harmony. Think of like a whale or a big fish that has the small fish swimming around it. That's essentially what these phages are doing. So if you've got E. coli, you've got a piece of E. coli, you've got somewhere between like 10 and 100 phages just living with it, living in harmony with it. And then when you take this product, what that signal's doing is it's flipping a switch where it goes from, I think lysis to lytic, where it goes from living in harmony to attacking its host. And so when you drink this and that signal induces that shift in the phages, it starts to attack its host, injecting its material, eating it from the inside out, killing it, and moving on to another host to try to kill it.
The host
They've
being bacteria that's become excess in the body that is not
pathogenic.
not serving the host.
Correct.
The big host, meaning you
The
are
big host. That's right. So it's never going to attack you. It's never going to interact with you. It can't. It's essentially monovalent, meaning it's only looking for one thing. It's got a very specific key, and that thing is got this specific hole and lock. So it's very safe to take. Worst case scenario is if you took like one that had like strep in it, but you didn't have that kind of strep infection, it's just water. It's just going to go through you. The signal's going to reverberate through your body and not activate anything and move on.
So even if you were misdiagnosed or you took somebody else's, if it's not appropriate for your body, it's just like water and passes out.
It's just like water, just going to pass right through you, interacting with nothing.
Fascinating. It sounds like it's safe enough for kids. Is it used on kids?
Yeah. My 7-year-old daughter loves taking it. It's like the only supplement that she's like, oh, okay, yeah, I love, like she loves doing it. She's like, yeah, I'll do this because it's just a little thing of water.
Does she take it because she has an issue or just taking it prophylactically for health reasons?
Um, a little bit of both.
Okay.
A little bit of both. Like I know she's got health issues and I know what they are, so we treat them. But then like everyone in my family did Lyme because I mean I had Lyme, and so everybody, my 2 daughters and my wife all did the Lyme with me. Regardless of, and I didn't even test positive for Lyme the first time I tested me. So it's like, how do I know I had Lyme? Because my life changed the second I took the Lyme inducin and killed Lyme, and my life changed. And I didn't need a test to tell me I had it, because when you take these formulas, they're targeting very specific infections. And if you feel different when you take that formula, it's because you had that infection. Like that's the only thing that it could be.
Yeah, Lyme has a reputation of being very tricky to diagnose and test.
Yeah.
So what are the tests that if somebody's working with you, what kind of tests do you do with them?
So after, 20 some odd years and and looking at every single test because they're cool and they're fun and they're exciting and you get all this really great information, and I've personally just test myself all the time on different tests, and I wanted to see, does this change my opinion on what I would do? Does it give me more confidence in what I'm doing? And so at this point I've kind of dwindled it down to three different tests: one blood test, one urine test, and one stool test. So the blood test looks at pathologies. It's by a lab called Vibrant America. It's called their Tick-Borne 2.0. It looks at somewhere between 1 and 200 different types of infections, either from Lyme or viral or co-infection or bacteria, anything like that that you might get from a tick that's opportunistic or a co-infection. And that's a blood test. That one will look for fragments of the DNA. Is there DNA fragments floating around? That's what a PCR test looks for. But it'll also look at, are do you have IgM antibodies or IgG antibodies? Meaning, was your body exposed and is it building a defense?
And just real quickly, is that just looking at Lyme or anything tick-borne, say alpha gal or any other issues that come up on
Yes,
that?
it looks at it looks at 250 different things. So it will look at like that again, because I had somebody who had West Nile virus. It looks to see, do you have West Nile virus? Um, so it's a very robust, like, I mean, they have different categories. They have Lyme, then they have Lyme co-infections, and then they have like these two other sections of opportunistic infections. At the end of the day, what the test is it's looking for things that are typically neurotoxic in nature, and it's looking to see, hey, do you have anything that might be contributing to your neurologic symptoms? I think it even looks at like EBV, Epstein-Barr virus. Um, I wish I knew I was going to talk about the test. I'd have the list in front of me.
Oh, that's okay.
You can, they have two different types of tests. They have a blood draw. The blood draw does everything. And then the finger prick test gets sent to you at home. That only looks at antibodies. So that one can be effective for people who are chronic, and we're not going to find anything floating around in their blood because it's all already hidden and deep inside. And so there's no expectation with a chronic person of seeing anything in a PCR test or in like a um, Ingenix does what's called a FISH test, and that looks for RNA fragments of Babesia. Um, like, there's no expectation for somebody chronically sick to have any of that. And so our best opportunity is to just look at your immune system and see, was it ever triggered? Um, because after 20 years, I can almost guarantee that if you were triggered at some point, even 20 years ago, it's still floating around in you. And your body didn't get rid of it. Like, Lyme sucks. It's not easy to get rid of, and your body needs a lot of help to get rid of it. So, um, matching that positive with your symptoms is usually a pretty good indicator that you are dealing with Lyme.
So as far as them being tricky to identify, test for, they tend to hide in a biofilm. Is that correct?
Yeah, they tend to hide in a biofilm, and you're taking blood. So at the end of the day, tests are, if you test positive for something, then I'm pretty sure you've got it because we see it, right? If you test negative for something, that doesn't mean anything. It just means that we did see it in the sample. So the nice thing with Vibrant is it's actually looking at antibodies. So it's going to capture what kind of white blood cells you got. And that's going to be pretty systemic. And that's the only reason why I use that test or like that test for people who want to get a test, who want to see. That's the test that I think gives us the best opportunity to see as many things as possible.
And can you tell us briefly about the urine test and the stool test?
Yeah, the urine test is a hormone test. It's the Dutch test. That's for people who have hormone issues. It looks at your primary hormones like cortisol, estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. But then in particular, it looks at all the metabolites. So when you make those hormones, they break down into different things, and it the test allows us to see what your basic values are, but it also helps us understand, are you breaking them down and are you detoxing these hormones? So you can get an idea of liver function, you can get an idea of like how's your glutathione and methylation pathways, those kind of things. You could get an idea of you know, kidney function and liver function, like I said. So it gives us this great understanding of from the beginning of your body making hormones to you pushing them out. And is there a kink in the hose, and where is the kink in the hose at the end of the day? So it kind of fills that picture in for people.
Interesting. And the stool test?
The stool test is a really cool test. The test that I've kind of fallen on right now that I use predominantly is called Tiny Health. And that's actually the website, tinyhealth.com. There's two different versions of the test, but ultimately why I like this test um, is that they use this newer technology that's, affectionately called a shotgun technology that allows us to identify bacteria in a more specific way. And in fact, it'll look at the DNA of the bacteria. So you can imagine our understanding of the microbiome is still very limited. And so we aren't able to name all the bacteria that we got. But what this technology does is it allows us to at least see their DNA and understand what they're functionally doing. So we understand, hey, when we look at all the DNA that is making vitamin D in your body, you have a normal amount compared to other people who are healthy, or you have a low amount compared to other people who are healthy. And then you could take that information, look at somebody's blood work, and understand really simply how to change their diet in order to foster a microbiome where they're making enough vitamin D,
Interesting.
right? Because your microbiome, not to get on a super, I love the microbiome. And so like when I was in chiropractic school, it was like early 2000s, and that's when they were doing the genome project. And they're like, we're gonna figure everything out, we're gonna map out the gene, and we're gonna know everything. And when they were done, they found out that people have 12,000 protein folding genes, which are the genes that do stuff. And an earthworm has 12.5 protein folding genes, which is more than a human, but they're more simple and we're more complex. And they were stumped, and they're like, this doesn't explain anything. Like, we don't understand anything. And so they wanted to learn what affected genetics. And the thing that affects genetics is the thing that's above it. And the thing that's above it is so epigenetics. So this is where epigenetics comes from, right? And this is where the microbiome comes into play. So when you look at the genetic makeup and the protein folding genes, the bacteria that's in and on us bring, I think, 100 to 150 times more protein folding genes to the equation. So if you want to think of it like a chain link fence, like our genes are the first and last one, but your bacteria are all the links in between creating that vitamin D. Like your body says, I want more vitamin D. Sunlight comes in, it starts with you, but then the bacteria have to help synthesize that so that you can actually make it and use it. And that's what makes us so complicated is our complex environment that we have with bacteria, fungus, viruses that support our DNA. Um, and that's why I like studying the microbiome and not all these genetic pathways and all these genetic tests, because one, I'm not trained like an MD, and MDs love those pathways. And that's kind of the pharmacology is kind of where they're trained. And so that's like their thing. My thing is way more like looking at the microbiome, looking at epigenetics, looking at in chiropractic, we've always learned of the three T's. Traumas, thoughts, and toxins are the three things that drive disease. And if you can eliminate the physical trauma, the emotional trauma, or the toxic trauma, once you eliminate it, the body will heal itself. And so for me, the root cause is always going to be one of those things. And that's kind of what I focus on. And everything else is noise to me. And everything else is somebody else's specialty. My specialty or my focus is going to be, can we identify what those are? Can we use these phages to do the killing for us to essentially pull out the splinter? And then, my gosh, the body heals, and that's just the way it is. And if your body's not healing, it's because you didn't pull the splinter out. And I don't want to make it that simple because we're complicated people and people are dealing with complicated issues. But my complicated, multi-layered issue can be understood in simple terms of I had infections. I got rid of them. My body just wanted to heal within hours. Within hours.
I love that. I have this picture that I have keep quite handy. It's a camel flattened on the ground with all of these sacks on it, and people say, "Well, how do I get healthy?" Well, take the sacks off.
Yeah,
And that can be a thought, which is what I help people get rid of that
that's
are
right.
lurking around their subconscious mind, a trauma, a toxin. Uh, but whatever you're taking the load off that camel, it has much better ability to stand up and actually be able to move through its life.
Yeah, it's not like, it's funny. It's like people get sick and they become housebound. And then once they get healthy, it's not like they have to relearn how to drive or they have to relearn how to walk. Like you just fall back into that. And it's the same with the body. Once you just eliminate that stressor, the body just kind of falls back into place and it starts to heal and function the way it wants to. It constantly wants to be back in balance. It constantly wants to be healthy. Um, and we just have to see the signals and listen to what it's saying and identify what that is that we need to remove.
Love that. So you explained something to me that I found quite interesting, that phages naturally occur in nature.
Yes.
And when they reach a certain point, I think you said 40%, that there's this self-corrective mechanism. So could you just share that? Because this concept of self-correction is so beautiful. And we have the ability in our own bodies, provided there aren't so much stacked
Right.
against us that we can't flip that switch in our own bodies.
Yeah, so I believe it goes like this, like there are phages in nature. There's viruses everywhere. But the way phages work in nature is there's this 40% threshold that the bacteria or fungus or we'll just say the bacteria. The bacteria that they are with, when it starts to overgrow in its environment past a certain point, like 40%, the internal switch in the phage gets clicked and it starts to knock down that bacteria so that it doesn't overgrow. This is why we don't see overgrowth in forests or fields or lakes or rivers or anything. It's part of that mechanism of just keeping things in balance. And there's other things in nature that keep, that keep everything in balance. But I find it interesting that those viruses and those phages are part of that mechanism, and it's built into the system to use phages to just keep these bacteria in balance. And so what we're doing is we're flipping that switch inside of us, because you got to imagine, if you've got an E. coli overgrowth, you'll probably be dead by the time it's 40% of your body. So we need to just kick that in before that 40% threshold. And that's what we're doing. And we're using something that you've already got. You already have this inside of you, and we're just activating it.
I love that. Well, Chris, it's been so nice seeing you, so nice talking with you. How do people find you? How do people stay
Yeah.
in touch with you? What are
So
your contact info?
Yeah, so the two websites that I have, one of them is just drmolda.com, DRMOLDA. And that's generally, just generally who I am in my practice, and that'll give you, some information on the phages and the different programs that I do, whether it's Lyme or, gut healing. Can't remember what other programs we've got. I think we've got a stress and anxiety program still there. Um, And then I have LymeMadeSimple.com. And at Lyme Made Simple, for anybody who, is curious about Lyme, they can go there and learn more specific information about Lyme and the phages. There's a free questionnaire. I think it's called the HMQ38. It's a standardized Lyme questionnaire that asks you 38 questions, and at the end of it, it'll tell you how likely it is that you're dealing with Lyme. Or is it, could be Lyme, mold, parasites, could be a viral load, that kind of thing. And so if you were always curious about that, you can go there, and you have the ability to schedule a free 15-minute call if you have any questions that you want to ask me specifically about the protocol. It's not a consultation where people can tell me their whole health history. That's not what it's designed for. It's more to just see, does it make sense? Does this protocol make sense for you? And answer those questions, and go from there.
Fabulous. Well, thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule. Folks, feel free to share this with anybody that you know who would benefit. Click like and subscribe, and we will see you on the next episode of Next Level Healing. This podcast is intended for the purpose of providing information and education. It does not provide advice and is not meant to be used for any self-diagnosis or the replacement of any kind of licensed professional. The creators and individuals appearing here do not endorse any specific tests, positions, medications, products, or procedures. The views and opinions are expressed in this podcast are of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of any entities they represent.